So hello, my name is Rattu. Welcome to my senior challenge. So my senior challenge is about the handbook that I created, which is entitled "How to Run a Successful Blood Drive from A to Z." I'll talk more about that in my presentation. So first I want to formally introduce myself. So I did say my name is Harpreet Rattu. However, in the community, I'm regarded and commonly known as Hina. One of the reasons why I joined this blood drive. So I want to talk about the actual blood drive in general. So the blood drives that we've been having for the past 5 years are community blood drives that are run by students. I joined this blood drive committee because I was interested in healthcare, and this gave me a perspective on allied healthcare. I also wanted to make a positive impact in my community, which is why I also joined this blood drive. I've been a part of this blood drive for about 4 years. Initially, I joined the blood drive. I learned more about the blood drive as a volunteer at the actual event my freshman year. After being a part of this blood drive for 4 years, I decided as a senior I wanted to end it on a great note and make sure that other students are learning more about this blood drive. And the best way to promote it for me was through the senior challenge, also known as a capstone experience. And that's what I started to do, and through that I developed a handbook. Now, before getting into my actual senior project, I want to talk about the blood drive that's being run within South Burlington. So in the past, we've had lots of blood drives take place in South Burlington. However, they were run by different organizations. And what was established 5 years ago was a student-run blood drive. And that's what made these blood drives that have been happening for 5 years unique. The first blood drive that was established 5 years ago that was student-run was by Aya Alnami, who is now a graduate at UVM. And since then, we've been having blood drives take place. I was, as you can see on the list here, I was a part of the fourth blood drive that took place, and that was as a junior. And more about that later in my slides, in my presentation. So the actual blood drive, my blood drive took place January 28th, 2014. And when I was organizing this blood drive, I decided that there would be 3 objectives to organizing this event. The first was to have a goal of collecting blood pints. That was going to be 65. The second was to promote this event that was going to happen to all of South Burlington. I wanted to make sure that everybody in South Burlington knew that this event was going to happen, whether they came or not. And then the third was to make sure that at this event we were strengthening community relations, because that's the point of these blood drives. We call them community blood drives because the purpose is to bring the community together of all different ages. So the planning process took about a year, or it took place between the academic year of 2013 to 2014. It took about 6 months to actually organize this event, and some of the key parts of the blood drive that I focused on while I was organizing it was publicity, recruitment, and incentives. Publicity is basically promoting the actual event. Recruitment is making sure that we have donors come to the actual event, and then incentives are the rewards that we give them for being so willing to donate their blood. So a vital part of my blood drive was my team. Rebels for Lives was the name that we are known as. We were mentored by Mr. David Carmichael, a Vermont account executive at the American Red Cross Blood Services in Burlington, Vermont. And the second mentor that we had was Nancy Lavarnway, a faculty at South Burlington High School. They were very vital in helping me organize this blood drive successfully. They were the ones that I went to really understand what it is that I needed to organize this, what exactly I needed, what the components were for me to be successful in organizing this blood drive. Along with that are my members that are in the picture. It was a very diverse group. It was made up of about 2 boys and 9 girls. and the group was very diverse. It was made up of underclassmen and upperclassmen, which was really essential because as we were promoting a community event, it was essential for our group to actually be, united within the school in terms of the different grades. Now, one of the males isn't pictured here, but yes, there were two. There were two males in our group. Since then, there have been more males that have joined the blood drive group. So along with this blood drive, so the outcome at the end of this blood drive, we were successful. We ended up beating our goal or exceeding our goal, and we collected a total of 69 pints of blood. This was really essential because at the end of the day, we were able to provide at least 200 lives, 200 patients with this blood. And then another great part of the blood drive at the end was that we had a strong community presence. We saw a lot of students donate blood. We saw community members come and donate, your neighbors, your average Joes. We saw all of them come to our event, and it was a really great presence of community. We also saw a lot of support from our local businesses, which was essential because not only did we have our community present, but we also had the local businesses, the organizations that helped us organize this event, take part in the event as well. So after this blood drive was over, I was looking at this blood drive in retrospect, and I realized that for me, running the blood drive was very difficult initially because I didn't really know what were the basics that I needed to have covered. So what I realized was each year, this was the same problem for every student chair. There was a lack of organization and consistency. So I wanted to ensure that these community events would continue onwards, that we would have future community-led, community student-run blood drives. So to ensure that, I decided to create a student handbook. There was one created previously, I should mention, by Avni Nahar, who was the third student chair. However, her blood drive, the information that she provided in her handbook, it was very basic and it didn't really go into detail about South Burlington. It didn't pertain specifically to South Burlington. It was very generalized. So that's something unique that I brought to my handbook as well, that I wanted to bring to my handbook, was the aspect that was with the provide resources that specifically pertain to South Burlington. So that brings me to the purpose of this project. So the purpose of this project is to create a comprehensive manual geared towards the continuation of annual student-led community blood drives in South Burlington. So now coming into the statement of the project. So once again, like I said, I decided that I wanted to create a handbook to make sure that student chairs that lead the blood drive in the future would be presented with the basic information to lead the blood drive, so that they would effectively lead the blood drive and they wouldn't be missing out on anything. So with that purpose in mind, I knew that I wanted this to be written with an orientation towards students. I wanted it to be oriented towards students, and I also wanted it to have a professional aspect. So, if someone could, because this handbook would be it would be archived in our community library. So to ensure that all members could. So what I wanted to do was ensure that all members, anybody, not even, you didn't have to be a student to actually open my blood drive. I wanted to make sure, to open my handbook, I wanted to make sure that you could access my handbook and be anybody in the community and read this book and actually be able to run your own blood drive. So I didn't want this to just focus on students, but I wanted to have a professional aspect so that anyone in the community could run this event based off of my handbook. So what I realized was, in order to have that professional aspect, this handbook would have to be professional. It would require research, which brings me to the statement of the project. To create the professional manual, research is required to identify key components of a comprehensive manual. So, after doing research, I realized that there were 3 key sources that were the most helpful and most relevant to my handbook. They include the Orientation Volunteer Manual, the Marketing Plan, and a Project Plan. Now, each of these 3 sources did different things for my blood drive handbook. So starting with number 1, the orientation volunteer manual. What this did was help me find the essential components and organize my actual handbook in a manner that would help build strong relations between the organization, which is the blood drive committee, student chair, along with its participants. So find a great way to direct the reader and be successful in organizing and being able to develop stronger relations between the group. The second thing, so the second source, which is the marketing plan, what this did was actually evaluate the situation. So that is that's the actual blood drive. So looking at the blood drive as it is and looking at the situation of organizing the blood drive through different perspectives. Those perspectives include publicity, recruitment, incentive, along with other components, which will be mentioned later on. And so this helped me evaluate the situation better and define what those are. And it helped me create and better explain how this would function in our blood drive. And so the third source was the project plan. And what this did for my blood drive is actually tackle the situation effectively. It provided me with the means to tackle the situation, the sources that I needed and components that I needed to actually get the situation, to tackle the situation better. So what this did was provide effective schedules and checklists to complete and set goals. And so all of these components help me be able to be successful in organizing my handbook in a manner that would allow for all this information to be displayed in the most effective manner. So after looking at all of the sources and looking at what the information they provided, I came up with the Fantastic Four. And this highlights all of the common themes that were mentioned in all of the sources that I wanted to make sure was mentioned and implemented in my handbook. They include objectives and goals, the identification of key roles and expectations, accessibility and availability to resources, and an executive summary. So to actually elaborate on my sources, looking at source 1, which is entitled Creating an Orientation Manual for Volunteers, what this is this manual that I researched was basically a template for nonprofit organizations. It provided nonprofit organizations with the best components that they would need in order to effectively organize a manual for their own volunteers. And so when I read this and evaluated it, what I concluded was that there were 3 key components in the manual, which are the welcome letter, the organization, and the volunteer. Now, as you can see, welcome letter is underlined, and that's because that is one of the essential 4, which I've been calling the Fantastic Four. And so I've underlined it because that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure was in my handbook, and it is in my handbook. So now to elaborate a little bit more on the organization piece, because that's the second component that is essential for an orientation manual for volunteers. So what this section talked about was a lot of different subsections. Now I've split them up, as you can see on the screen, in terms of what was relevant to my handbook and what was not relevant. That is just additionally mentioned in the manual. So what I decided that I would incorporate into my handbook was a mission statement, objectives and goals, the impact of the organization, and an organizational chart or list of volunteers. Now again, the ones that have been underlined are directly related to, or they're directly related to the Fantastic Four. I just wanted to give you guys a reminder that everything that I listed in Fantastic Four, though I listed them as, they're listed in different names. They have different names, but the components are all the same. So continuing on with the orientation manual in source 1, under the volunteer essential component, there were different subsections, and those, I split them up into what was essential for my handbook and what wasn't essential. The ones that are essential include the importance of the volunteer, why volunteer in the organization, statement of the organizations, and commitment to volunteerism. And again, the essentials were implemented and incorporated into my handbook. So looking at source 2, which is entitled The Ingredients of a Marketing Plan, this source was specifically, the key audience for this source was the commercial and marketing field. And what I found was all 5 of the elements that were listed were directly related to or directly relevant to the handbook. They include the market situation, threats and opportunities, marketing objectives, budgets and controls, and the executive summary. So what I wanted to do was ensure that all of these would be included in my handbook. Examples at the I have provided examples of where I've actually implemented these in my handbook towards the end of this presentation. One example includes the Fantastic Four, the essential components. One of the examples that I did provide in here for the marketing plan is the executive summary, which I already mentioned. And on the right, what you can see is the welcome letter, which is what I created to welcome students and get them used to what the blood drive process is. There's more information about this towards the actual end, towards the end of the slide, the end of the presentation. So in source 3, entitled Components of a Project Plan, the focus of this source was to was to list components that were essential for those people that were interested in planning projects. So this helped me organize my handbook in terms of how I wanted people, specifically the student chairs, to tackle the situation of organizing the blood drive successfully. Again, what's been underlined, the problem and mission statements, objectives and deliverables, specifications and resources, those are all directly related to my Fantastic Four. Along with those, the work breakdown structure and the schedule was something that I wanted to include in my handbook. So that is also listed here within what I considered essential. So after doing research, what I decided to do was construct my actual outline of how my handbook would look. These right here, as you can see on the slide, is the basic setup of my manual. It starts off with the executive summary, which is it begins, welcome. It welcomes students and provides them with an overview of what it is what the responsibilities are to run the blood drive and what it looks like, what components are going to be essential to run this blood drive. Then we get into leading an event, the preliminaries. It talks about what you need to cover before actually getting your group together, which includes setting up a date and for your blood drive, contacting your officials, and making sure that everything is organized and good to go before you actually start the process of organizing your blood drive. That's because that leads into the third Roman numeral, which is leading an event optimization. The essentials that what I considered important in terms of our blood drive was incentives, publicity, recruitment, canteen, along with a section about organizing the day of the event because that's a separate thing altogether. And then there are checklists and essential documents that are provided so that when a student chair opens this handbook, they are provided with everything that they need already so that they don't have to worry about, taking the time during the school year to actually organize and create these documents. They're already provided for them so that they can effectively go out and manage incentives, publicity, and recruitment. Then the fourth Roman numeral is a special request because, and this is something that wasn't mentioned in all of my sources, but what I thought would be essential for this specific handbook, and that is just basically a reminder that though you do get caught up in the process of running the blood drive, it's essential to remember why you're running the blood drive in the first place, and that just basically highlights the importance of donating blood and what your purpose is as volunteers and as members of the committee and what your dedication looks like. Lastly, I have a bibliography because I use a lot of, in the preliminaries, I use a lot of what Hina spoke about, this third student chair, what she spoke about in our blood drive, in her own handbook that she created. Okay, So now talking about our handbook, once again I wanted to reiterate that the Fantastic Four include the objectives and goals, the identification of key roles and expectations, accessibility and availability to resources, and an executive summary. So on the right hand you can see that this is what the cover of my handbook looks like. What I want to do now is actually show some actual examples from the handbook of where I've used these essentials, the 4 essentials. So, objectives and the executive summary, which are 2 of the Fantastic Four essentials. They are found in the welcome letter, which is at the very beginning of my handbook. So overall, the welcome letter is the executive summary, and the objectives and goals are directly listed in the welcome summary. They include what I've already spoken about. The first is that you need to try to meet or exceed your goal of collecting blood pints. And then the second is to make sure that you have promoted your event to all of South Burlington. Make sure that everybody in South Burlington knows that this event is happening. And then the third is to make sure that you've engaged and you've contributed to building a stronger community, and you've strengthened the relationships through this event. So key roles and expectations. Now this is located in an overview of the preparations. So this is the 5-month preparation. So basically what it is it's just an overview before a checklist is provided, and it talks about, it highlights basically and it summarizes everything that I've listed in the publicity, incentives, and recruitment section of my handbook. What you'll find here is just a basic reminder of what you need to achieve in this month. So, resources. At the end of my handbook, I've provided documents that would be very helpful in organizing to organize a blood drive. And one of those documents that I've provided is a brochure, and the brochure is on this slide right here. This is the front. It basically addresses just what this event is, where the incentives are coming from, what businesses are supporting us, what the basics information about the event, and also a theme, which is part of the blood drive, but not as essential as the other components. But is also listed in the handbook. And this is the back page, or the inside cover when you open the brochure. So this brochure is something that student chairs can use and even the members can use when they're actually engaging with businesses, which is a big part of organizing this blood drive. And so it just provides them with the basic information and shows validity of this event actually taking place in the community. So now we're on to evaluation. So, when the blood drive ended, Mr. Carmichael, who again is the Vermont account executive, he was also one of my mentors. He sent an email, and in the email he expressed an informal evaluation of what had happened, and his perspective of what had happened at the blood drive and the success of it. Some of the things he mentions is specifically pertaining to myself was the maturity level that I managed, my determination, and the energy that I had throughout the actual organization process. He also talked about my team and how they were loyal and caring, and it was a great team that we had been able to organize. They were definitely a big part of the group, a big part of the success of the blood drive. He also spoke about the 69 productive units of blood that we were able to collect and where that was going to go. It would supply over 200 hospital patients. And just a little quote at the end, he ended it off by saying, "You took a blood drive with 3 years of history and found a way to make it even better." So now, what I also, though this informal evaluation was really great, I also wanted to get an informal evaluation. I wanted to get a formal evaluation from Mr. Carmichael, which is on the next page right here. For the most part, I was evaluated with 5 out of 5. Actually, all of these, everything that he needed to evaluate, every section that he needed to evaluate was 5 out of 5. That's what I scored. These include my ability to be prepared, my reliability, my attitude throughout the whole organization process and the day of the event, along with how I interacted with others, along with different components as well. So in terms of self-evaluation, specifically about the senior challenge and creating the handbook and actually being a part of this course, some of the things that I realized I could improve on was my time management skills. I definitely, and specifically pertaining to the meetings, I was late to meetings sometimes, which is something that I want to make sure that in the future, if I'm part of any other organization and there are meetings being held, that I'm on time to those. In addition, a challenge that I found was that there are multiple components to the course, and I felt that when it was listed in the curriculum, it was very intimidating to see all at once. But it was broken down, and that's why I've also put that in the positive aspects. The fact that it was broken down and spread out throughout the year, the assignments and tasks. Another one of the improvements I can make is the time frame, and so in terms of how I deal and balance academics with the course, because it is an independent course. It's very similar to an independent study for those that are taking, independent studies throughout their school year. This is what it's very similar to, and I think what I could have done better was definitely consider one of my classes instead of just an assignment on the side that I'm supposed to do. So focusing on the positive aspects now, I believe that I did complete every task to its fullest. I was dedicated and focused throughout the entire course. And once again, like I've said, I believe it was challenging that there's multiple components, but that's something that I liked as well. I really liked the fact that there was that challenge aspect in the senior challenge. And the last thing is that I believe it helped me with my preparation, the method. It helped me evaluate how I prepare myself, and I thought overall it was a positive experience being a part of this course. Now, specifically talking about the different components that were a part of the senior challenge. So the action plan and research paper, I combined those two together because they were fairly similar in terms of the expectations that they held by Mrs. Lavardway. So in terms of the improvements, I think the method of how I organized the information, it took a lot of process to organize the information and the structure, and that's something I think I could have worked on almost immediately. I should have been able to work on that, and now that I have that experience, I'm sure I'll do better next time I'm faced with a situation where I have to create an action plan or write a research paper. Now, the actual research process, the topic that I was given, that I chose to support my handbook, was finding the essential components of a manual. I thought this was a very challenging topic because it wasn't something very basic that you could look up. It required a lot of research and evaluating different sources, and it was really hard to find sources that would actually answer the question of what are essential components of a manual. Now, the positive aspects of the action plan and creating a research paper is that I was able to develop a more professional method. I was able to learn how to write professionally, and that's something that I'm really hoping that will help me in the future. And along with that, specifically about next year, I'll be going to college, and I think the research paper was really going through the process of creating a research paper and developing one is going to help me with the preparation in college when I write research papers there. Now, talking about the handbook and developing that, overall, I think there were improvements and there were positive aspects, which is why I've just called it the development process. In terms of the outline, creating that structure was difficult for me. It required a lot of redrafts, so overall, I thought it was challenging, but I wanted to ensure that whoever read it, the perspective that it was written in would be very clear and concise. So, and I wanted to make sure that I was actually taking the research paper and incorporating everything that I learned into my handbook. So organizing that was difficult, but I made it. Now, in terms of organizing the content, I did do this project I actually organized the blood drive as a junior. So what I think was great was being able to organize the content and collect all the materials that I needed to create this handbook. So having that basically a year-long deadline or a year-long time frame to collect all the information was great. And yeah, I'm really proud of the structure that I've created for the handbook, and the perspective that is written is very personalized, and I talk about my experience in the handbook as well. And And overall, I think it's very interactive, so you can really, it's very easy and accessible for any student chair or community member, and that's what I was really proud about. Now, to go into reflections, focusing more on the organization process of how I ran the blood drive. So in terms of improvements, I think that organizing the actual event, another thing, something that I'm going to highlight, which I mentioned in my senior challenge evaluation, is time management. There are definitely meetings that were that I had committed to, but I didn't follow through with sometimes, and that's something I should have been able to recognize as the student chair, that it's my responsibility to commit to that time if I've required everyone else to do that. So that's one thing. Another thing is leading the event as a junior. I thought it was a little intimidating because I was working with upperclassmen, and that's one of the things that made it really difficult sometimes to be able to interact with them, in my opinion and in my experience. And what I found was that I wasn't dividing the work very fairly, and I think I should have been able to do that no matter what grade I was in. If I was the leader, I should have been able to do that. So that's something I could improve on if I find myself in a situation where I am younger and I'm leading a group of older people, then I should be able to do that. In terms of the positive aspects of running the blood drive, I think the communication that we had was really great. We used a lot of new technology like Facebook, and we used Google Docs, and we used email, the basic form of communication that's through technology, and it was really effective. Facebook was one of the best methods because we were able to actually I was able to actually delegate tasks very quickly, and we didn't always require a meeting, which was great because not everyone can meet in one place, but you can, through a screen, you're able to know what your tasks are, which was great. And I was also able to follow through and follow up and check up through Facebook, which was great. Another positive aspect was the community connections that we were able to build through this. We were able to incorporate and bring in new businesses into the blood drive process and into our community, our committee, our blood drive committee, which was great because now they're actually a part of, most of them have stayed with us, and in this 5th year of running our blood drive, they are part of, so in the 5th year, they follow through, they still sponsor us and support our group and our event, which is great. Now, something special that I did at the end of my blood drive, in retrospect, I decided that it would be best, or actually what I decided was it would be really great to have members that were actually part of the team evaluate me. And some of the things that they said was also, it's very similar to what I've said. They said that in terms of time management, meetings are definitely something that I should have been more committed to, and clearer directions. So when delegating tasks, I should have been a little more clear. And then lastly, the positive aspects of this that they mentioned was that I was dedicated, enthusiastic, and leader that persevered throughout the entire year. So if you're looking to find out more information and actually look at my handbook, it is located at the South Burlington Community Library, and it's archived under How to Successfully Run a Blood Drive from A to Z by me, Harpreet Rattu. Lastly, what I wanted to do is thank everyone that was able to help me throughout this process, throughout the senior challenge process, as well as the actual organization process of the blood drive. The first would be the St. John Community Parish Center. Next, I'd like to thank my mentors that definitely helped me better guide my group, would be David Carmichael as well as Nancy Levarnway. I also want to thank my South Burlington. I want to thank South Burlington High School, faculty and staff, and as well also the peers, for donating and coming out and showing their support for this event. I also want to thank local businesses and organizations that were so willing to sponsor our event and promote our event. And lastly, I wanted to thank my team that helped me make this blood drive a success in the first place. So this is the conclusion to my senior challenge. Thank you very much for joining me.